taller than you. Friends and family, if you want to gather in a little bit closer, we're going to begin the funeral service for Mrs. Eileen Winterfeldt. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it in the silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. I also like to welcome anybody via live stream on behalf of the family. Thank you for attending. And services will be conducted by Rabbi Suzanne Griffel. Thank you.
Harofeh lishvurei lev, you who heal the brokenhearted and bind up their wounds, grant comfort and consolation to these mourners as they face their grief. Fill their lives with the acts of loving kindness and truth, which serve as the genuine memorial to our dear Eileen Winterfeldt. The deep bond of love will remain unbroken. And I thought this was so appropriate to start this service for Eileen because acts of loving kindness and truth were her MO. The consensus of everybody, as well as my own observations during my relationship with Eileen over the last year and a half, were that she, and I it's hard for me to say was rather than is, such a kind, loving person. One of the things that came up as we were talking yesterday is sometimes she and her late husband David were so kind to others that they neglected themselves. Such a beautiful person, truly a beautiful personality. And look at this beautiful photo. You can see her and David and Raymond and Bradley looking beautiful physically as well. And she leaves a beautiful legacy. One of the things I was especially struck by, I mean, this is actually since I first met her. And by the way, when I say met, it was over the telephone. I didn't meet her in person until just a few months ago after we were all vaccinated. But ever since I started talking to her regularly, one of the things that really struck me was how important doing beautiful things with her hands was. That she loved to color, draw, paint, and I learned more recently, really just yesterday, that she also loved to needlepoint, and that Nancy has a permanent physical reminder of her through a pillow that she made, and her nephew Grant wrote in that he will always carry her with him because she made his bar mitzvah kippah and talit, which he uses on all the life cycle occasions. So her legacy lives on in so many ways, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical. And so while I can't tell you how much I wish we were not here burying Eileen today, I wish I had been able to visit her in the nursing home yesterday, which is what I had been planning to do. Or even at the hospital. I guess once I found out she was in the hospital, I was planning to visit her in the hospital. I certainly wish that. But given that we are here, this really is a celebration. There is so much about Eileen's life to celebrate and to give thanks for. As we continue, I'd like to ask you to join me in Psalm 23, where we pray for her to be able to be with God for all eternity. Please feel free to join me. Oh, good. I'm glad you have the words. Thanks, Peggy. Let me make sure that I am reading the same translation that you are. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And that is our prayer for Eileen, that she will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. From the book of Ecclesiastes, there is a time for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting the planted, a time for destroying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones together, a time for embracing and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time to speak. This is now the time to speak about Eileen. The word in Hebrew for eulogy is hesped, and it means to share some things about the goodness of a person's life. And this is really the core of the first part of the funeral service. And so now, I just realized we didn't talk about the order, whether Brad wants to speak first or Nancy. Both Eileen's son Brad and sister Nancy will share a few words. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for showing up. First of all, I've been, as you all know, there's been a lot that's happened in this past year. But my mom, nor my brother, nor my dad would want us to be sad. My mom was a great person. She loved everyone, whether it be family, friends, or even people she just meets. She was someone who had a big heart for everyone, and she very rarely talked bad about people. I remember when I was in my teens, my mom used to help these four elderly ladies get around, help them do things, help them with their stuff, help them just have a life that their kids wouldn't help them with. And she cared about everyone. She will be missed, but we should not mourn her. We should celebrate her, because my mom was a Beatles fan. She was a hippie, and she loved every bit of it. She's now with my dad and my brother and my Aunt Cher, and she's looking down upon us and smiling, because now she's no longer in pain. As you guys know, she had a lot of health problems at the end, not just from this year, but in the past 10 years. She had a knee replacement. She needed a second one, but she just refused to get that one done. She was there when my dad lost his job and went into retirement. She was there for me every time I needed help, every way she could. She would take me to school all the way from Richmond Park to Oak Brook 3 times a week for 2 years. And my mom was so loving. If you needed a kidney, she would have given you hers. And I know we're all going to miss her very much, because she was the greatest mom I could have ever asked for. And we all love her. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nancy? Take your time. We do not want you to fall. Okay, thank you. As I look at all of you, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here. You mean a lot to myself and my family. You've all been extremely supportive. And I had everything okay to say, but it's getting hard now. But Bradley did a beautiful job of saying everything. And I just want to thank my family that couldn't make it out here. My sister Bobby, who I'm sure this is breaking her heart that she's not here. And her kids, my nieces and nephew. And I want to thank them for everything they've done also. I just want to add a little thing, that Bradley said. She's also going to be with her parents too, besides everybody else. But just to show you what a caring, incredible person she was, she came into the hospital this last time unconscious. And I didn't know if she could hear me or not. She couldn't respond to anything I asked. But the next morning, when I didn't think she was going to make it through the night, she did. And I got a call as I was leaving to come to the hospital that she has less than an hour probably. And she really did wait till I got there. And I put my hands around her face and I fixed her hair a little bit. And I told her everything was going to be okay. And I told her it was fine to be with David and Raymond, and Bradley is going to be just great. And with that, she took her last breath. And I truly believe she did hear me, because I think she really did wait for me to get there. And I think she was very comfortable with hearing those last few words. And I can't remember if I had anything else to say, but she was an amazing, loving, caring person. She was a carbon copy of my father, and they even look alike, and Bradley looks like them too. And I'm happy she's going to be with everybody. Thank you, everybody, again, for everything you've done and that you're doing. I so much appreciate it all. Thanks. Thank you. I know that was really hard. Thank you. And Bobby spoke about how she didn't think she'd be able to say anything because it would be too hard. But one thing I want to share specifically from Bobby, who came to visit about 3 weeks ago, was that I think Nancy and Bobby and Eileen were all together and they had a really fun time. And Tracy was there also, okay. And they had a really fun time playing with Bobby's wig and everybody trying it on. And Bobby gave Eileen a little mini makeover with some makeup, and they were all laughing and taking pictures. And so Bobby really brought Eileen some joy just a few weeks ago. And another story about her having joy even more recently than that when Nancy and Tracy were with her in the hospital 2 weeks ago, they put on some Beatles music and she was singing along and, dancing with her hands. All right. Bobby was there too. Excellent. So there was joy even in this really rough time, As I was reading that piece from Ecclesiastes, I really do like it, and I think it's very true in many ways. But you know what? Sometimes there's a time for weeping and a time for laughing at the same time. And as we mourn Eileen, it makes a lot of sense to laugh because she really liked to laugh. She liked to have a good time. One of the things that her nephew Grant wrote in was that both she and David were grown kids that always maintained that childlike quality, not childish, because they were definitely adults, but that childlike sense of wanting to do fun things. Like they loved taking their nephews and nieces to Great America, getting an ice cream cone, even just hanging out at the house was fun for them. And something that Tracy and Steve especially remembered was going to the Swap-A-Rama flea market, which Brad also remembers that. And it was Tracy and Steve's introduction to the Swap-A-Rama flea market. And Eileen just loved that place and loved showing them around the flea market because it was a place that really in some ways was kind of her place because she actually sold some of the jewelry that she made there. And by the way, I remember having a conversation with her not that many months ago where she was talking about how she had recently taught herself a new jewelry making technique of wire wrapping and was hoping to make some jewelry using that technique as well as others that she could go back to the flea market and sell because she was always looking to the future. And by the way, another passage that I didn't read, but one could at a funeral, is Woman of Valor. And one of the lines in Woman of Valor is talking about how she always looks to the future. And Eileen was always looking to the future. And another thing, and this is also a description of the Woman of Valor, is that she was always trying to see things in the best light and to try to have the most optimistic outlook that she could. She even said to me, sometimes she has to kind of yank herself, as it were, into having a positive outlook because sometimes things were really difficult, as has been acknowledged, but she tried so hard to always see things as positively as possible. And that was really one of the qualities that I most admired about her. And, Bradley mentioned that she cared about and did good for people who were her family, people who were her friends, people she didn't even know, neighbors, also for four-legged creatures. She was she and other members of the family. I know David and Raymond also were volunteers at Paws for many years. In fact, after Raymond died, Eileen asked me to help her call Paws to let them know that Raymond had died, because she knew that they would want to know. And so that's, her caring for both people and other animals. Just, really shows that she cared about the world. And I think that, one of the ways that we can really honor her and pay tribute to her is to show that caring. One other thing I wanted to mention, because this is something that she actually told me about like over a year ago when we were still talking just on the phone, is that one of her really fond memories from a number of years ago was having been an active member of the temple. And the name of the temple's gone through so many iterations, I don't even want to say the name because I'll probably get it wrong. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. That was what I was going to guess, but I didn't want to get it wrong because it's since gone through several others. And she loved organizing the rummage sale. And my understanding is that she was very good at it. And I can completely understand that she was very good at that. So what can I say? As a rabbi, I want to point out how she was involved in the Jewish community as well. By the way, this is within the last month, she was wondering what she might be able to wear to go to high holiday services. So always looking to the future, always caring about her Judaism and wanting to be involved in the community. There are so many more memories we could share. I hope that those of you who didn't get a chance to speak publicly during the service will have opportunities to share some of your memories with each other. For now, what I would like to do is give everyone who's here physically and here via the live stream, an opportunity to take a moment, close your eyes if you want to, and think of one of your favorite memories of Eileen and just kind of imprint that on your heart. I hope everybody has one. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of the sky and the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. When we hear one of her favorite Beatles songs, and apparently they were all her favorites, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. If it's comfortable for you to do so, please rise for the memorial prayer. And if it's not comfortable, please, if it's more comfortable to remain seated, please feel free to remain seated. Again, we don't want anybody falling or being in pain if you don't have to. El male rachamim, shochen b'maromim, hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina. V'malot kedoshim utahorim kezohar harakia mashirim. And Nishmat Eileen bat Mildred v'Raymond shahalcha le'olamaha. Ana bal harachamim hastira baseter kanafecha le'olamim. Utzror b'tzror hachayim et nishmataha. Adonai hu nachalataha. V'tanuach b'shalom amishkavaha. V'nomar Amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace and sadness the way of all things. May Eileen's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of her love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all of her worthy and righteous deeds, that her memory may forever be bound up in the bond of life. God is our source and our destination, our beginning and our end. May Eileen's death awaken us to this truth, that the bond of love we shared and share not be severed in sorrow. May she rest in peace, and together let us say, Amen. Okay, normally I would ask you to sit down at this point, but instead I am going to ask you to turn your chair around and move it just a little bit that way, staying within the shade. Fortunately, the shade has moved in the right direction. We are going to take a few moments to lower the casket, and while the funeral home and cemetery staff do that, we are going to play one of Eileen's favorite Beatles songs that we also thought would be very appropriate for this occasion, which is Here Comes the Sun.
We're asking everyone, please.
Yeah, everybody is now invited back. And what we are going to do now is the second part of the funeral service. And this is where we fulfill the very important mitzvah or religious obligation in Judaism of halvayat hamet, or accompanying Eileen to her final earthly resting place. And so first, you know what, actually, Nancy, maybe don't sit down just yet, because this takes place in two parts. First, we have some earth from the land of Israel that I would like to invite the family to place on the grave. And then we have regular earth from here that anyone who would like to participate in placing some on the grave to help with the burial will be invited to do so. And then once everyone who wishes to participate has had a chance, we will gather back together to recite the Mourner's Kaddish for the first time in Eileen's memory. So, yeah, if you want to come forward. You can all take a turn and do some of it. And then, you know what? Shovel now, so you don't have to come back. Let Bradley go. Yes. So, thank you. I was just about to give the guidance. Many people have the custom of putting 3 shovelfuls, which is a very significant number in Judaism and shows intention. If you'd rather do 1 or 2, you're welcome to. Some people like to do it with the shovel upside down to show reluctance. And some people will do that with the first shovelful, and then we'll do the second 2 in the regular way. It's really kind of hard to do it with the shovel upside down. But however makes the most sense to you and is the most meaningful to you, please do it that way. Also, as both Nancy, with help from Steve, and Bradley did, it is also customary to put the shovel on the mound when you're finished rather than handing it to the next person. We actually have 3 shovels. 3 might be awkward, but we could certainly have 2 people, 1 on each side. So whoever would like to participate in this part of Eileen's burial, this is our kind of act of love and care and respect for Eileen. Please feel free to come forward now. But I'm so glad I met you under happier. Oh yeah, she was close. Gosh, I wish I'd known about the jazz. That's her chair? No. Her new job. 2.5 years. Before that, you were in Michigan City? I'm still in Michigan City. You're still in Michigan City? Oh, okay. So you know Adina and all those wonderful people. I do. And Adina Sutton and well, like as they used to. Lauren Radman and we all, yeah. Rabbi Robert Oria? Yes. I'm the first cousin. Oh. Nancy's your cousin. Yes, my maiden name is Gail. Oh, you don't say.
It's really a huge source. All right, it looks like everyone who wishes to has had a chance to participate. Thank you for those beautiful sunflowers, Leanne. Sure. Oh, it looks like your mom wants you to put the ones that she's holding down too. Oh, how beautiful. This nice row of sunflowers. And what could be more perfect? Here comes the sun and sunflowers. Aunt Joy, exactly. Okay, so Leanne and Michelle were just telling me about jazzercise. I hadn't even known. But I can see Eileen doing jazzercise. I can. Yeah. Exactly. But if they had a form of exercise that involved Beatles music, she would have liked that even better. But I could definitely see her getting into jazzercise. So this is actually, it might not seem like it, but it is a perfect segue to inviting you to pick up your folder and go to the back page where you will find the words to the Mourner's Kaddish. Because, unlike what we might think, because the Mourner's Kaddish is the prayer we really associate with honoring our loved ones who have died, the Mourner's Kaddish in this form, I know that there is a traditional form that most people who aren't Orthodox don't know that mentions death, but the Mourner's Kaddish in the form that most of us are familiar with doesn't mention death at all. It's a series of praises of God
and prayers for the coming of God's kingdom on earth. And so I believe that what we are doing by reciting the Mourner's Kaddish in Eileen's memory is that we are pledging ourselves to perpetuate her ideals, to do the wonderful things that she did, to be good to the people in our lives, to do acts of love and kindness even for people we might not know, and maybe even for creatures that aren't human, and to have that joy in life and try to find the joy in the way to go on even when things are difficult. And if we do those things, then we will both be honoring Eileen's memory and bringing closer the coming of God's kingdom on earth, however we might envision that. So I would invite whoever would like to participate in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish to stand if it's comfortable for you to do so and join with us. Is that okay with you, Brad and Nancy, for others to join? Okay. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah ba'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala u'bizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace in heaven send peace to all who mourn for Eileen Winterfeldt, and may her memory always be a blessing to all of those whose lives she touched. And that concludes the funeral service, but all are invited to Shiva at Gail's home, and I hope Gail won't mind sharing her address.
Please join us at our house where Eileen and David always came for the holidays. Eileen was my other half. My name is Gail Kaufman. My address is 18339 Hood Avenue, Homewood, Illinois. Again, that's 18339 Hood, Homewood, Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you. And what an act of love to host the Shiva. Thank you so much.
This does conclude the service. I'd like to thank everyone who attended live stream. We're going to continue with the closing of the grave. This does conclude the service. Thank you.